If you've watched The Last Kingdom, you'll know Uhtred as the fearless, conflicted warrior caught between Saxon and Dane. But did you know that this character is only loosely based on a real figure, Uhtred of Bamburgh, who lived more than a century later than the show's setting? Let's explore who the real Uhtred was, how Bernard Cornwell adapted him from the Saxon Stories novels, and why this blend of history and fiction works so well. Uhtred began life as a Saxon noble, the rightful heir to Bebbanburg, today known as Bamburgh Castle. But his life changes forever when Danes raid his land, kill his family, and take him captive. Rather than being executed, Uhtred is raised as one of them, and this childhood forges his dual identity, Saxon by birth, Dane by upbringing. And throughout the series, Uhtred is torn between these two worlds, never fully accepted by either, yet uniquely able to move between them. It's this tension that makes him such a compelling character. And Uhtred is defined by his pride, his sense of honour, and his fierce independence. He is brave, quick-witted, and often reckless. He laughs in the face of danger, mocks both friends and enemies, and refuses to bow to anyone for long. He is also deeply shaped by his pagan beliefs. Unlike most Saxon nobles, Uhtred does not embrace Christianity. Instead, he trusts in the old gods and lives by the Viking conviction that fate is inevitable. His personal motto, "Destiny is all," captures both his fatalism and his courage. And one of the most fascinating parts of Uhtred's story is his uneasy alliance with King Alfred of Wessex. Alfred is devout, disciplined, and driven by a vision of a united Christian England. Uhtred, on the other hand, as we know, is pagan, impulsive, and more interested in reclaiming Bebbanburg than in politics. Yet Alfred needs Uhtred again and again. Uhtred's skill as a warrior saves Alfred's fragile kingdom, and though Uhtred resents Alfred's piety and control, he grudgingly admires the king's vision. Their relationship is built on mutual dependence, grudging respect, and constant tension, a dynamic that drives much of the early series. Uhtred's journey is also shaped by those closest to him. His friendships with warriors like Finan and Sihtric become his chosen family. His loves bring out his humanity and vulnerability. But above all, Uhtred is bound and torn by oaths. Time and again he swears loyalty to kings, to friends, and to causes, only really to break the oaths when they clash with his sense of honour. It makes him unpredictable, sometimes unreliable, but always compelling. So why does Uhtred resonate so strongly with audiences? It's because he stands at the crossroads of history. He allows us to see the Viking Age from both sides, through the eyes of the pagan Danes and the Christian Saxons. He is flawed, often selfish, but he is also brave, loyal to those he loves, and determined to shape his own fate. Bernard Cornwell has said he created Uhtred to give readers a human guide through the chaos of the Viking invasions, and in doing so, he gave us one of historical fiction's greatest characters, a man who embodies the struggle for identity in a fractured land. Now, let's talk about the historical Uhtred. Firstly, let's just get this out of the way there first. He wasn't a mercenary in the employment of King Alfred the Great. In fact, they weren't even alive at the same time. King Alfred ruled from 871 to 886, a full century before Uhtred was born. And to understand Uhtred, we need to first understand the world he lived in. By the late 10th century, Northumbria was a land constantly under threat. To the north, Scottish kings raided across the border. He had to contend with the Norse Vikings of Dublin and York, who had already left their mark. And to the south, the Saxon kings of England sought to bring the north under tighter control. Bamburgh Castle, then just a timber fortress high on a rocky outcrop, was the seat of Uhtred's family. The Aedwulflings had ruled for generations, and they were semi-independent lords, sometimes loyal to the English king, sometimes standing alone. And into this tense landscape, around 970 AD, Uhtred was born. Now, Uhtred, son of Walthof I, rose to power through extraordinary circumstances. In 1006, the Scottish king Malcolm II besieged the city of Durham. At the time, Uhtred wasn't yet the Ealdorman, but with the local leaders paralysed, he took command on the order of his father, who was far too old to fight. He gathered an army from Bernicia and Yorkshire and marched to Durham. The result was a bloody victory. Many Scots were slain, and the severed heads were gruesomely mounted on Durham's walls. Chroniclers claim that local women were even paid cows to wash the heads before display. It was brutal, but it worked. The Scots were terrified, and Uhtred's reputation skyrocketed. For his service, Ethelred the Unready rewarded Uhtred with the Ealdormanry of Bamburgh, even though his father was still alive. He also had Ethelhelm murdered, and allowed Uhtred to succeed Ethelhelm as Ealdorman of York, thus uniting northern and southern Northumbria under the House of Bamburgh. It seems very likely that Ethelred did not trust the Scandinavian population of southern Northumbria, and wanted an Anglo-Saxon in power there. Uhtred had gone from local noble to one of the most powerful men in England's north. Uhtred also understood that power wasn't only won on the battlefield, it was also forged in marriage. He married at least 3 times, each match strengthening his political standing. His first marriage was to Ecgfrida, the daughter of Bishop Oldham, who Uhtred had helped build Durham Cathedral. As such, he was gifted several estates and lands that had belonged to the church. Together, they had a son, Eldred. Uhtred eventually renounces his marriage to Ecgfrida and went on to marry Siga, the daughter of Styr Olsen of York. This marriage did, however, come with a condition, that Uhtred would murder Styr's enemy, Thorbrand the Bold. Uhtred didn't carry out the murder, and the pair separated after having 2 children, Eadulf and Gospatrick. And finally, Uhtred married Ælfgifu, the daughter of King Ethelred, making him the king's son-in-law. Uhtred's world was also defined by the clash of Saxon and Dane. In 1013, the Danish king Sweyn Forkbeard invaded England, sailing up the Humber and Trent to the town of Gainsborough. Uhtred, ever pragmatic, submitted to Sweyn, and in the winter of 1013, Ethelred was forced into exile in Normandy. After London had finally submitted to him, Sweyn was accepted as king by Christmas 1013. However, he reigned only for 5 weeks. On his death, King Ethelred returned, and Uhtred quickly changed sides again. This flexibility wasn't weakness, it was survival. Unlike the fictional Uhtred, who struggles with questions of loyalty and identity, the real Uhtred was purely practical. He bent with the wind, shifting allegiance to protect his lands, his power, and his family. But in the year 1016, Uhtred's luck finally ran out. After the death of Ethelred, his son Edmund Ironside tried to resist the new Danish king, Canute the Great. Uhtred supported Edmund, but when Canute's power grew too strong, Uhtred had little choice but to submit. Soon after, Uhtred was summoned to a peace meeting with a rival noble, Thorbrand the Bold, the person he was meant to murder during his second marriage. But it was a trap. At Canute's orders, or at least with his blessing, Thorbrand's men ambushed Uhtred. He and 40 of his retainers were massacred. It was a shocking betrayal, and it sparked a blood feud that would rage for generations. Uhtred's son Eldred eventually killed Thorbrand in revenge, but the feud didn't end there. Thorbrand's kin retaliated, killing Uhtred's grandson, and the cycle of vengeance stretched well into the Norman period, long after Uhtred himself was gone. So why did Bernard Cornwell choose the name Uhtred of Bebbanburg for his hero? Cornwell has explained that he discovered his own ancestors may have been linked to Bamburgh Castle, and he wanted to tell a story through that family connection. And by pulling Uhtred the Bold back in time a century, and dropping him into King Alfred's England, he created a fictional character who feels authentic, even if he never existed in that period. And the two Uhtred share some key traits. Both, as we know, are tied to Bamburgh Castle, or Bebbanburg as it was known. Both are warriors with reputation for boldness, and both men navigate shifting loyalties in times of invasion and upheaval. But their differences are just as striking. The real Uhtred was a powerful ealdorman, a political operator, and a victim of betrayal. The fictional Uhtred is a displaced heir, and a wanderer of sorts, a man at odds with two cultures. And in the end, The Last Kingdom gives us something history never could, a personal emotional lens on the Viking Age, told through a character who embodies its conflicts. The real Uhtred of Bamburgh was a very different man, but his name and his legend live on through this modern retelling. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the real Uhtred, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to help the channel grow, and let me know in the comments your favourite Uhtred moments from The Last Kingdom. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.